My friends, 2 days ago, an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq carried out a drone strike against a US Army helicopter.
We got a Black Hawk down, we got a Black Hawk down.
This comes only days after another FPV drone flew right over the US Embassy in Baghdad. That's not all, because check this out. This is reportedly an image of an Iranian soldier waiting on Karg Island for a potential US ground operation. But I want you to pay attention right here. There are two FPV drones sitting next to the AK. And let's just say American soldiers are not ready to be on the receiving end of drone strikes. Now imagine an elite battalion of 500 Iranians with two FPV drones each. Just think of the damage they can inflict. This is alarming for so many reasons. As more and more US ground forces are being redeployed to the Middle East, all I can say is that the US military is not ready for drone warfare. Yes, they can take an island, and then what? They're gonna be sitting ducks. The US population is absolutely not ready for drone kill cams of its troops, with close-ups of their frightened faces in a montage with funk music. But that's not all. They will also face all the Iranian long-range Shahed drones that have already proved so destructive against US bases.
Oh, okay.
When I look at all the footage coming from the Ukraine war, I'm really worried because US soldiers only have very little training in drone countermeasures. Yes, maybe the US military has relatively recent combat experience from Afghanistan and Iraq, but IDs are nothing compared to the lethality of FPV drones. Those are like flying IDs. I'm not a hater, I'm just being realistic. But before we continue, a quick word from today's sponsor. Ceremonial cocoa has 40 milligrams of flavonols. This powder, 1,200. That's like comparing chuck roast to filet mignon. I like this cocoa powder by Black Forest so much that the jar you saw last time is now empty. I actually ordered a new batch from Black Forest because their cocoa powder has pharmaceutically extracted flavonols. Put it in your coffee, put it in your milk, it tastes amazing. I guess you can also raw dog it. I didn't try it though, so let me know how it goes. Here's what Rhonda Patrick had to say, one of the top independent science educators in the world.
And those who drank a beverage that had flavanol-rich cocoa in it 3 times a day for 6 months were able to walk 46 yards further in a 6-minute walking test compared to those that drank the placebo beverage. And so it was shown that the improvement in their walking ability was a consequence to increased blood flow in their calves and also improved muscle function. So that was a super interesting study. There was another study that was actually done in young healthy males that showed that dark chocolate improved their cycling. So basically those that had dark chocolate were able to cycle 17% farther in the same amount of time than those that had the placebo control, which was white chocolate. The study also showed that they basically didn't need to consume as much oxygen to basically cycle farther as well.
Black Forest cocoa, flavonols and flavonoids, nitric oxide booster, cardio performance, heart health, and made in the USA. It's ceremonial cocoa put on steroids. And research proves it. You can look it up. Harvard studied this with 21,000 people. Final results, 27% reduction in heart attacks. You have the choice between some shaman ceremonial cocoa from Guatemala made by hippies overcharging you, or kickstart your mornings with this cocoa powder by Black Forest with 1,200 milligrams of flavonols. The good news is that if you're thinking about trying it, now's the time because Black Forest just launched their biggest deal of the year. And it's insane. Buy one get one free of their best-selling cocoa formula, available for 48 hours only. I repeat, this ends in 48 hours. And when it's over, it's gone for good. Take control of your health before someone else does it for you. Many in the media speak of an air assault against Karg Island. In my previous video, we already established that this is probably a PR stunt and just a facade for the public, and not the actual target of the US military. But then there are talks of storming various islands along the Strait of Hormuz. You know what, a couple months ago, battle-hardened Ukrainian special forces attempted an air assault against Pokrovsk. The moment they landed, the Russian recon drone was already circling right above their heads. And moments later, Russian FPV drones chased down this entire Spec Ops rifle team you just saw, hunting them down one by one. Drones really changed the nature of warfare, and to this day there's not really much you can do against them. Most of the doctrines and combat tactics of the Cold War, or just even 10 years ago, are now outdated and obsolete. Air assaults are so easy. We're gonna show them, these Iranians, how fighting is done.
You sure about that?
Look, I won't hide it, I'm very pessimistic about this entire ground offensive against Iran. The scary part is that many units in Iran's Revolutionary Guard have gone through advanced FPV drone training for 2 years now. 2 years! And they've probably been trained by Russian veterans. In some of the propaganda videos the IRGC published, we can observe that they fully implemented the lessons from the Ukraine war, with small units riding motorcycles and quads. Then they quickly disembark only to launch drones at the enemy in various types of scenarios. They're also training on how to hit naval targets. This is all far more advanced than what NATO forces are capable of at the moment. In February 2025, the IRGC announced the formation of a specialized drone detachment, while showing off all the drones they had available. Hopefully, it's all propaganda. Let's hope their drone units are not actually that advanced. Let's hope they don't have fiber optics drones. But hope is a habit US soldiers will soon have to unlearn. Imagine the Iranian military built various bunkers and underground positions at strategic locations. US troops might just unknowingly walk over them and then face surprise banzai attacks. Whoops, wrong island campaign. And then FPV drones will come flying out of nowhere, followed by this terrifying buzzing sound. You know what? Many Ukrainian officers didn't want the US Army to intervene directly in its war against Russia, because they feared that American troops would suffer too many casualties due to their inexperience and their complete lack of knowledge in regards to drone warfare. But let's take a step back, because this current drone warfare crisis actually started on the 28th of February, right at the beginning of Operation Epic Fury. Remember this video from Bahrain, where we can observe a Shahed-136 drone plunging down and the guy recording is yelling "strike, strike, strike" in Arabic, and seconds later, boom, this radom is just exploding. A $30,000 Iranian drone destroyed a $300 million long-range 360 air surveillance and missile defense radar site. The next day on March 1st, it's a US camp burning in Kuwait that was struck by a Shahed drone. And that same day, also in Kuwait, another long-distance Iranian drone targeted a US Army Reserve logistics unit in Port Shuaiba. This time casualties were high, as 6 soldiers were reported KIA. The worst is that despite all the feedback we have from the Ukraine war, the hundreds of Shahed drones that the Russians are launching, no lessons were learned. The Washington Post declared that imagery shows US troops had little protection. They provide us with a picture stating, the trailer did not have any hardened protection above it to deflect or minimize the explosive force. And this is just the beginning. What do you think is going to happen when tens of thousands of US military personnel are going to be deployed in that same region? Especially when the New York Times stated, many of the 13 military bases in the region used by American troops are all but uninhabitable, with the ones in Kuwait, which is next door to Iran, suffering perhaps the most damage. If the situation is already pretty bad for US bases in the Gulf countries, it's a complete disaster in Iraq. Here on the 28th of February, a Shahed-107 drone launched by the Islamic Resistance targeted a US air defense system in Erbil. On the 6th of March, another US radar deployed in the vicinity of Baghdad International Airport was hit. That same day was special because it marked the first recorded combat use of FPV drones by the IRGC against electronic warfare equipment in Iraqi Kurdistan. Unfortunately, the video cuts before we know what happened. Footage is a bit blurry, no funk soundtrack, no crazy edits.
3.6. Not great or terrible.
The Iranians still have a lot to learn. That's the only positive part of this entire video. 24 hours later, an American soldier recorded an Iranian drone strike on a US radar at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. At least there were some bunkers on the base. The problem is that the entire American air defense component was meant to destroy Iranian ballistic missiles. But there's barely anything to fend off small and low-cost FPV drones. As a reminder, on the night of the 12th of March, a Shahid-style drone struck a French base near Erbil in Iraqi Kurdistan. The attack caused the death of 42-year-old Chief Warrant Officer Arnaud Frion and wounded another 6 soldiers from the 7th Mountain Battalion. There's also this alleged footage from the drone strike. This would mean that just like the US troops in Kuwait, it's one of the barracks and sleeping quarters of the base that was struck at night. Can you imagine that one low-cost drone caused 7 casualties in one of France's most elite units? 2 days after this incident on the 14th, it's a radom within the US embassy that was destroyed by a drone. But yeah, the situation for US forces deployed in Iraq is catastrophic, where they're repeatedly targeted by small FPV drones. The next day, on the 15th of March, an FPV drone from the Iran-backed Iraqi Shia militia, Kataib Hezbollah, casually flew over the US Victory Base complex near the Baghdad airport for at least 2 entire minutes. The drone was
just hanging around,
looking at everything on the base before finding a hangar and crashing down. Very important to note, this drone pilot is a complete amateur. We can feel that he doesn't really know how to control the UAV, and in my opinion, he probably got lost above the base. Now imagine if the US actually faces guys that know what they're doing. Oh, and you thought I was done. On the 16th, another FPV drone from local Shia militias gave us a full tour of the green zone in Baghdad where the US embassy is located. If this is not worrying to you, I don't know what else to say. Anyway, no lessons were learned from US forces deployed in Iraq. And that's how on the 24th of March, another FPV drone flew over Victory Base. This time the drone spotted an AN MPQ-64 Sentinel radar system, because another one recorded the entire action from above, and we clearly see the explosion of the first drone, thus confirming the destruction of this very pricey radar system. This means at least 2 Iranian-backed FPV drones attacked the American base that day. That's when the pilot of the remaining drone spotted juicy targets in the distance, namely a parked Black Hawk helicopter. It's the same type of helicopter that Ukrainian special forces used during their air assault against Pokrovsk. My friends, the writing is on the wall. I mean, look at that. The 2 helicopters are just out there in the open. Zero protection whatsoever. Not even some form of concealment. Now, this is not your regular UH-60 Black Hawk. It's a US Army HH-60M medical evacuation helicopter. We can see how the video editors blurred the red cross painted on the Black Hawk. Right now, thousands of American troops are converging towards the Middle East. The Wall Street Journal reported thousands of Marines to arrive in CENTCOM the same day as Trump's Iran deadline. The 11th and 31st Marine Expeditionary Units are on their way. Part of the 82nd Airborne was confirmed as being deployed to the region, thus confirming the rumors of the past few days. At last, according to flight logs and various rumors, multiple elite formations are also preparing for the invasion of Iran, like the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, Night Stalkers, the 75th Ranger Regiment, Delta Force, the 1st and 5th Special Forces Group, as well as Navy SEALs. This smells like some sort of air assault will take place, but we saw the vulnerability of helicopters in the age of drones. But that's not all. What happens once the infantry has disembarked? The worst case scenario would be for US combat units to panic and to lose cohesion as they get targeted by enemy drones. And it's not far-fetched. Look at this footage from Russian fiber optics drones just swarming Ukrainian rifle teams. There's literally no escape. These days, it's impossible for the infantry to maneuver on the battlefield in groups of more than 5 people. And it's not necessarily safer with armored vehicles, since they make bulky targets that are quickly engaged and then immobilized. A couple days ago, the Russians attempted mechanized attacks on Ukrainian positions. Most of the vehicles were destroyed or immobilized before even reaching the drop zone. We're witnessing a real tactical deadlock. The same type of deadlock armies faced during World War I with machine guns. This is gonna be a hell of a baptism of fire for the 82nd Airborne and all the Marine units. The US Army is only teaching its men on how to manipulate drones in an offensive way, as the attacker. But barely anything is done on how to defend against enemy UAVs.
Madness.
And even the little training they provide is years behind what is actually happening at the front in Ukraine. Most American weapons available are meant for large drones, but I haven't seen much training on what American infantrymen can do against small FPV drones. Yeah, sure, there's some target practice at the shooting range, some shotguns are being used. In this footage, we can see men of the 82nd Airborne manipulating UAVs. That's cool, but it's not enough. Or check this out. Yesterday, Business Insider posted this video titled, "How Army Soldiers Are Training for a Possible Trench War with Russia," where we see infantrymen getting lost in some German woods only to storm a trench in tight groups. Back to square one! So I repeat, the US military is not ready for drone warfare. I hope I'm wrong. Let's hope the Iranians don't have entire battalions of FPV drone operators. Let's hope that US forces have the right countermeasures. But looking at how poorly planned this entire operation is, I have the right to be extremely pessimistic. That's all I have for you today. See you in the next one.